Earlier today, these hallways were filled with lawmakers and reporters ahead of a crucial Senate vote on a bill to keep the government open. Some folks say they've had to scale back on spending and even raise last year's costumes from the dead. Protesters, as you can see behind me, following Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's meeting with President Donald Trump earlier this afternoon. We've caught a break in the rain, but of course still on the lookout for those potential on and off showers. And while it might be damp outside, wet weather's certainly not dampening the spirit. And if you look at the float right behind me, you will see that the flowers are still in pretty good shape. This is part of a larger demonstration nationwide against the Trump administration. Now, Senator Bernie Sanders just spoke moments ago, and it's clear that the crowd here, who've shown up in droves, are here to take a stand against government overreach. DC, under this mistletoe, is looking to make history. And in fact, official participants were given numbered badges as they entered, and just by walking around, the highest number I saw was a whopping 1360. It's been nearly 48 hours since the federal government shut down. Congressional leaders continue to clash with no agreement in sight. Northwestern University announced Friday night it has reached an agreement with the Trump administration to restore federal funding and close pending investigations. Now, this agreement requires NU to pay $75 million to the federal government. It's been nearly 48 hours since the federal government shut down. Congressional leaders continue to clash with no agreement in sight. Tuesday night, the Senate failed to pass a funding bill to keep the government open, with Senate leadership pointing the blame at the opposing party.
It's because the Republicans wouldn't negotiate with us.
Chuck Schumer's had a war room going for the last couple of months to orchestrate the shutdown.
Republicans blame Democrats for the shutdown, arguing they're holding the federal government hostage over health care, something the GOP says they will iron out when the government reopens.
He comes up with this ransom note asking for $1 trillion to just keep the government open for 4 weeks.
Democrats blame Republicans for rising healthcare costs and are using the shutdown to try to restore healthcare funding that was cut by Congress earlier this year.
People are going to lose their healthcare.
If funding is not restored, the Congressional Budget Office estimates insurance premiums could more than double for close to 24 million Americans on ACA plans. They also say 16 million more Americans would become uninsured in the next decade.
They're going to put off their care, many will get sicker, and some will even die. That is the reality.
But it's one thing to say that we should solve the healthcare crisis for Americans. It's another thing to say that we're going to shut down the government unless we give the Democrats every single thing that they want.
House Democrats also calling out their Republican counterparts for leaving town before a deal is reached.
If we're House Republicans, they are on vacation.
Reporting in Washington, Philip Lamb, Medill News Service.
Lady in the white, what are you?
Ghosts and goblins will come to town this Friday, but the scariest thing this Halloween might be the price tag.
For our family in particular, but I think in general, people are sensitive to the fact that prices have increased.
Some folks say they've had to scale back on spending and even raise last year's costumes from the dead.
Candy has been a little bit more expensive this year. Actually, for our costumes, we borrowed some.
From costumes to yard decorations, importers are raising prices this year due to tariffs. The average cost for a Halloween costume is up 11% from last year.
Costumes, party kits, decorations are definitely being hit worse than candy.
Tariffs are haunting companies like Worth Imports, which sells Halloween decorations to wholesalers.
In my industry, it seems like the competition has been 12 to 18%, and I'm kind of at the low end of that. Assuming the tariffs stick, I'll probably raise them some more next year.
Companies are considering whether to shift manufacturing to the United States, which they say could be difficult.
The Chinese are just really good at manufacturing. I don't see any of this coming back to the United States.
About 85% of Halloween products are made in China, which faces a 30% tariff on most goods. Experts say importers typically pass the cost down to retailers and consumers.
If you're buying something new, then chances are it might end up costing you a little bit more than what you paid for it last year.
As companies operate under ever-evolving tariff policies, families are caught in a balancing act.
We don't want to give up or sacrifice any of our values or traditions or customs, but everyone's having to tighten their belts in different ways.
Reporting in Washington, Philip Lamb, Medill News Service. The Supreme Court heard arguments for a high-profile Louisiana congressional redistricting case that could determine the fate of the Voting Rights Act. At the center of Louisiana versus Calais is a debate over the constitutionality of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, a provision that bars redistricting maps that dilute voting power for minority groups. The oral arguments drew crowds from across the country, largely in support of the VRA.
I've been talking to people from Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Louisiana.
Activists at the rally say that voting rights are on the line and that marginalized groups need to have a fair say in who represents them in Congress.
If Section 2 is gone, there really is no now protections for minority voters to ensure that their states aren't discriminating against them when it comes to redrawing the lines at the city, state, and federal level.
Those that oppose Section 2 say it is unconstitutional because grouping voters by race violates the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. Nora Ahmed, the legal director for the ACLU of Louisiana, says the Equal Protection Clause alone isn't enough, and preserving Section 2 is vital.
When you're talking about more than a third of the population not feeling as though their voices are being heard, we have a problem, and we're not addressing the needs of the people.
Voting rights activists add that slashing the VRA could compound existing challenges.
Affordability, healthcare, education, jobs, wages. We can't get progress on any of those issues if we don't have a government that actually reflects our communities.
Democratic lawmakers voiced concern about how the Supreme Court could rule on the VRA.
I'm the first generation of African Americans born with full equal rights because of the Voting Rights Act. And to see this being debated now, it just hurt my heart to think that my children will have less rights than I have in my lifetime.
Reporting at the Supreme Court, Philip Lamb, Medill News Service. It's less sunshine and more roses for those attending the Rose Parade this new year. But for Charles Smith, it's a full circle moment.
I celebrated my 4th birthday here in Pasadena, California, but now coming back and seeing Pasadena again with the rain and just an amazing parade.
The floats, 43 of them in total, come from around the country, from San Francisco to Indiana to the final frontier.
They all are beautiful. I love them all.
This year's Tournament of Roses accompanied by a torrent of rain for the first time in 20 years.
We were dead set on coming, and rain or shine.
The downpour, part of a larger holiday storm in the LA basin, with Pasadena receiving over 10 inches of rain in the past 2 weeks, according to the National Weather Service.
We had ponchos and everything. We spent all day yesterday trying to find umbrellas and ponchos.
We're just about an hour 15 into the Rose Parade. We've caught a break in the rain, but of course still on the lookout for those potential on and off showers. And while it might be damp outside, wet weather's certainly not dampening the spirit. And if you look at the float right behind me, you will see that the flowers are still in pretty good shape.
We put with water, glue. Yeah, Elmer's glue, water-soluble glue, and so we could see all the stuff that was.
There was some damage on the floats today.
Despite some minor hiccups, the parade went as planned for Daniel Elroy and Audrey Stemple, who volunteered to bring the Rotary Club's float to life.
We just took a shift at the Phoenix warehouse and spent 8 hours taking onion seeds and making stripes on zebras and tigers.
This year's theme, the Magic in Teamwork, marshaled by former NBA player Magic Johnson. The parade drawing out attendees from as far as the Midwest to see the floral spectacle.
We came in from Indianapolis, Indiana. Actually booked my hotel about 11 months ago.
Reporting in Pasadena, Philip Lamb, Tangent Scene. This just in near the White House, protesters, as you can see behind me, following Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's meeting with President Donald Trump earlier this afternoon. The two leaders agreed to a peace plan, but clearly not everyone is on board. Protesters gathered Monday afternoon near Lafayette Square to criticize Israel's war in Gaza. Among the demonstrators, one Jewish organization who says Netanyahu is conflating religion with politics.
We are terribly upset when we are seeing Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, coming here to the White House meeting President Trump, supposedly representing all Jews, and sadly supposedly representing the Jewish religion.
Others are urging Congress to oppose continued funding and halt the supply of weapons to Israel.
An arms embargo is the only way to ensure that Israel is held accountable for its actions and that they're not able to massacre thousands and thousands of innocent Palestinians.
Reporting in Washington, Philip Lamb, Medill News Service.